12 Cursed Stepmother Stories, Sinister Secrets Exposed That Will Haunt Your Dreams Forever. When Emily thought of curses, she pictured tales recited around campfires, not the dark silhouette of her new stepmother. Rachel glided through their Maplewood home with an unsettling grace, her smile barely hiding something vile beneath. Over the past 2 months, the inviting aroma of barbecues wafting through the neighborhood felt tainted, like the sweet scent of decay. Emily's life, once filled with summer bike rides and laughter, had morphed into a nightmare painted in shades of gray. Everything changed the moment her father married Rachel. On this particular rainy Saturday, the storm cracked the sky open, and doubt crept into Emily's chest. Her heart raced and her skin prickled, chilling her to the bone as she crept up to the attic, seeking solace among the familiar dust and shadows. As thunder rumbled ominously, she found the old wooden chest, its worn hinges whispering secrets of families long gone. With shaky hands, she pried it open, revealing yellowing photographs. Each captured a moment of joy, a smiling family gathered around a picnic, carefree kids splashing in puddles. But there was something off about them. The cheerful faces twinkled with an eerie quality, frozen smiles masking a truth that made her stomach churn. Emily's breath quickened when she noticed the sinister pattern etched in these images. Deceased. Missing. Tragedies that haunted the very streets of Maplewood. Could Rachel be the vessel of these misfortunes, weaving herself into the fabric of darkness that blanketed their neighborhood? Could she be the malevolent force that held sway over lives, manipulating and ensnaring the residents of Maplewood? Panic fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. Days bled into nights as eerie whispers became her constant company, soft murmurs echoing through the halls, brushing past her ears like icy fingers. She wanted to tell her father, to shake him awake from the enchanting days Rachel had cast over him. Each time she opened her mouth, though, the words turned to ash. "You simply don't understand her," he would reply with a dismissive wave, oblivious to the whispers that clawed at the back of Emily's mind. Frustration twisted within her. Was Rachel a siren, leading her father into a dark abyss? Night after night, fear contorted into anger, culminating in late-night arguments. Their home vibrated with hostility. One evening, just when Emily thought the air might clear, the unimaginable happened. A neighborhood friend vanished without a trace, leaving only unanswered questions hanging like a noose in the humid night. The adults murmured about a curse that sat heavy over Maplewood, a malignancy that claimed the innocent. Emily's pulse quickened. She needed answers but felt like she was grasping at smoke. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, armed with desperation and dread, Emily noticed a hidden door beneath the attic stairs, accompanied by an unsettling whisper that seemed to beckon her closer. Heart pounding, she hesitated, thoughts spiraling. But ultimately, trembling with fear, she pushed the door open. The dust choked her breath as she stepped inside, where remnants of families past lingered, watched over by shadows that crept against the walls. Tattered toys, clothes, and the suffocating scent of centuries swirled around her. And then, she saw a diary, yellowed and frayed at the edges, inscribed with Rachel's name. Its pages were filled with cryptic incantations and tales of vengeance that sent ice coursing through Emily's veins. The moment her fingers traced the inked words, a cold wind rushed past her ears, carrying her name in a voice that made her spine tingle. She felt paralyzed, staring into the abyss, paralyzed by the horror of possibility. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate, leaving her alone with a chilling question: what lay in the depths of Rachel's heart, and what dark power did she truly wield over their suburb? The moment the door slammed shut, a deafening silence flooded the small room. Emily's heart raced. She felt the air grow thick around her, as if the very walls suffered from the weight of ancient secrets. Greasy shadows slithered along the surface of the walls, twisting and warping under the faint light filtering through the cracks in the attic. She glanced at the diary, the only source of comfort in this sea of despair. The pages whispered to her like ghosts beckoning from beyond the grave. Each word dripped with malice and dread, igniting the darkest corners of her mind. She felt drawn to it, fighting the instinct to flee. What if the truth hid within its pages? As she flipped through the manuscript, her fingers trembling, she caught sight of an entry that made her stomach turn. It detailed a ritual, an invocation of sorts designed to manipulate fate and bend the will of those caught in its tangled web. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Rachel wanted power, not just over her father but over Maplewood, with all its trapped souls lingering in the shadows. Lightning illuminated the attic for a brief moment, casting her own terrified reflection back at her. Somewhere in the distance, a window cracked open, and the wind screamed like a banshee, sending chill after chill down her spine. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, desperate for it all to vanish, the shadows, the whispers, the diary. But the whispers persisted, louder now, echoing through the cramped space. It was an incantation. She could hear her name intertwined with a haunting melody of loss and despair. The walls pulsed with each syllable, nearly drowning her in their malevolence. Panic surged. Could Rachel truly have woven the curse into their lives? Was she the architect of misery in the town? Suddenly, the door jolted open, and in walked Rachel, her silhouette framed by a dark, menacing light. For a heart-stopping moment, their eyes met. Emily stumbled back, clutching the diary tight to her chest. Rachel's lips curled into a smile that twisted her features into something grotesque. "Did you find what you were looking for?" she asked, her voice smooth yet sharp, like glass. "You've taken quite the interest in my family history." Emily's throat felt dry as sandpaper. She fought against the urge to scream, to spill every ounce of fear clawing inside her. "What are you?" she managed to squeak. "What do you want from us?" Rachel's smile widened, revealing a glimpse of something deeper, darker lurking underneath. "It's not what I want," she crooned, eyes narrowing to slits, "but rather what needs to be done." The shadows around Rachel twisted and danced, and Emily's heart pounded harder, each beat a frantic warning. The diary grew hot in her hands, pulsing in rhythm with her racing pulse. The words she had read echoed in her mind. This wasn't just about her father. It was about power, control, and a curse that seemed to stretch beyond this thin veneer of reality. In one fluid motion, Rachel stepped closer, icy breath brushing Emily's skin. "You shouldn't have come here, dear. This house has its secrets." With horror engulfing her, Emily stumbled backward, breath hitching as she caught sight of the eyes watching her from the attic shadows. Children, faces frozen in terror. Were they victims of Rachel's curse? Where had they come from? As Rachel laughed, a sound like broken glass, Emily felt a current of desperation surge through her. She couldn't let Rachel win. Couldn't he let her claim another soul for her wicked game? Yet the fear gripped her like iron chains. What could she do against such darkness? The trembling in her hands ignited a fire in her resolve. Emily knew she had to confront Rachel, to find a way to break the cycle of terror, to uncover the true nature of her stepmother's curse. But as she turned to flee, Rachel's laughter echoed in the oppressive air, drowning her in dread. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the sky, as though warning her of the fate that awaited her if she failed. Would she be the next victim in Rachel's twisted legacy, or could she find a way to fight back? The answer rested in a world teetering on the edge of despair, and Emily had never felt so alone. But the question lingered, haunting her thoughts. Could she change the fate that Rachel had spun around them all? Emily's instincts screamed at her to run, to burst through the door and flee into the night. But something anchored her to the spot, the grim stairs beneath her feet grown heavy with dread. Rachel's dark presence loomed like a shadowy predator, hungry and waiting, each flicker of lightning bringing her malevolence into sharper focus. The children stared, wide-eyed and pale as they huddled against walls, their small hands clawing at the air. Their eyes darted from Rachel to Emily, begging for rescue or at the very least, understanding. Emily felt a well of rage bubble within her. Would she let herself become another notch on Rachel's sinister belt? What did you do to them? Emily charged, her voice cracking under the weight of fear and determination. Rachel's smile faltered, just for a moment. Nothing that they didn't invite. You see, dear Emily, the spirit of this house feeds off of their despair, and they are willing participants in this dance. If they want freedom, they must be willing to become part of the ceremony just as you will be. Emily's heart dropped at her words. The diary might hold the key to understanding their fate, but how could she decipher the twisted spells buried among those unsettling pages? Rachel's eyes slid shut for an instant, fingers weaving intricate patterns in the air. The shadows thickened, curling around her like smoke, a dark ballet that sent shivers racing down Emily's spine. Join us or be devoured, Rachel cooed, drawing closer. The malicious energy crackled between them, a tangible force that pulled at Emily's very core. Why is it always about power? Emily breathed, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The attic felt like a living entity, pulsating with every word spoken, every breath drawn, every heartbeat. She could feel the spectral children's suffering bleed into her consciousness, their pain echoing against the walls. Power is the only way to extract a price from this world, my dear. It's a dance we all partake in, willingly or not. Rachel beckoned softly, the shadows weaving a tapestry of horror around her. Desperation fueled Emily. She needed to act, needed to discover if the diary held anything that could help them. How many more must suffer before you're satisfied? She challenged, squaring her shoulders against the terror that crackled in the air. Only as many as it takes, Rachel replied, her voice low, seductive. The laughter of the children mingled with Rachel's, resonating in a haunting chorus that made Emily's skin crawl. The shadows shifted, clawing at Emily's fingers as they desperately grasped for the diary. She could sense the growl of ancient spirits caught in Rachel's web, a warning to the foolish who sought to undo her work. But all at once, a gust of air surged through the attic, dousing the candlelight illuminating the room, plunging them into darkness. In that instant, the air thickened, the horror rose to a pitch. Emily's instincts flared, telling her to stumble back and take flight. But she gripped the diary tighter, its heat radiating as if alive. This was no mere book, it was a vessel, a summoning tool for those trapped in this hellish cycle. Emily, the ghostly whispers surged, rising as one to drown out Rachel's sinister command. Help us. With her heart pounding, she found herself resounding with the spirit's plea, an entangled note of fear and desperation flowing from her lips. I will not let you go on like this, she shouted into the darkness. The shadows coiled tighter, and Rachel's scream sliced through the silence like a blade. You dare defy me? But Emily shook her head, brimming with newfound defiance. No! I refuse to be part of your evil. The shadows behind Rachel twisted violently, as if the spirits themselves pushed against the dark will of their captor. This ends now, Emily cried, holding the diary aloft. With her heart hammering and the world tipping on the edge of chaos, she could feel the eyes watching her from the darkness, their souls mingled with hers in this battle of fear and resolve. Could she summon the power buried within the diary to fight Rachel? Would it be enough to release the innocent souls, or would they all be consumed by the dark force that had ensnared them? As the shadows roared and twisted all around her, one question echoed loud and ruthless: was Emily ready to embrace the darkness to save the light? The darkness felt alive and hungry. Emily's heart thundered as the chilling whispers intensified, a cacophony of despair echoing off the attic walls. She had the diary, but what did it truly hold? Power? Curses? A chance for salvation, or more chains binding them to this nightmare? Emily, the children's voices harmonized, a fragile sound weaving through the chaos, a plea for freedom buried within their terror. It brushed against her like cold fingers against bare skin. What do I do? She gasped, her breath coming in ragged spurts. Outside, a storm raged, lightning illuminating snippets of her surroundings, dust motes, swirling like lost souls caught in perpetual torment. Rachel moved closer, a wraith-like figure in the oppressive darkness, her smile now a twisted chasm. You can't get rid of me that easily, Emily. You're too important for the grand design. A flash of lightning illuminated Rachel's face, casting long shadows across her features. Emily saw something there, something more than just malice, desperation flickering behind those dark eyes. Could it be? Was Rachel herself ensnared in this deadly dance? Enough games! Emily shouted. The adrenaline surged through her veins, igniting a fire inside her that threatened to consume every ounce of fear. I want to be a pawn in your plans. Rachel's laughter pealed through the attic, sharp and eerie, as the shadows tightened like a noose around Emily's throat. You're mistaken if you think you have a choice. This house will always claim what belongs to it. Emily stumbled back, desperation clawing at her mind. She opened the diary, its pages crackling as if the words were charged with electricity. What if, the thought surfaced and thrummed in her chest. What if the diary didn't just hold spells? What if it contained the very truths of Rachel's power? The flickering candlelight returned for a split second, and she glimpsed an entry. Daring to lean closer, her fingers brushed over the Inca ritual, a binding ceremony. Her resolve hardened. She raced against time to decipher the text as Rachel's shadows pulsed with menace. Don't even think of it, the sorceress hissed, but Emily pressed on, her fingers dancing over the words. The purest heart, fueled by desperation, haunting whispers wove more swiftly around her. The children's cries mixed with Rachel's growl, creating a haunting symphony that resonated inside Emily's bones. They stirred memories, their innocence fading, crushed beneath unyielding darkness. But Emily's focus shifted, narrowed down to two words: release, bind. Two threads of raw power, each entwined yet at odds. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her, a stab of ice in her heart as Rachel unleashed a torrent of magic that reeled back around them. The shadows propelled forward, writhing like serpents, and fear rippled through her. Emily! You must choose! The children begged, their voices rising above the storm. Her hands hovered over the diary, the choice forming in her mind like a raging storm giving way to an eye of calm. Could she bind Rachel's power? Could they, the lost souls, finally be freed? I will break your chains, Rachel! Emily yelled, the words issuing forth with a force she didn't know she possessed. Just as she whispered the binding ritual, a shadow lunged, curling around her, pulling her into its cold embrace. A scream clawed at her throat, but she would not falter. I bind you, Rachel! The room erupted in frenzy, darkness contracting and then surging, throwing Emily against the wall as pain radiated through her body. She felt the diary heat beneath her hands, fueling her resolve. Then came a scream, a sound that split the air, reverberating like shattering glass. Rachel! The shadows convulsed, caught in a tension between light and dark, as the boundaries of power twisted. Would the binding work? Would the screaming cease? As the last vestiges of Rachel's scream echoed in the depths of the attic, Emily felt the house tremble. But then silence. What emerged from that silence? The attic walls breathed. And so did something else, something ancient and hungry. A shiver crawled up her spine. Something was coming. And it was hungry for blood. Was it too late to turn back? Or was this just the beginning of a horror beyond reckoning? Emily pressed her back against the wall, heart hammering wildly. The silence felt thick, choking. Every breath she took seemed to disturb the air laden with anticipation. In that moment, it hit her: what if binding Rachel had awakened something deeper in the house? Something darker. The creaking of the floorboards echoed like distant thunder. The walls seemed to lean in, eagerly listening. She dared not breathe too loudly, fearing it might provoke whatever emerged from the void. The children's spirits mirrored her dread, their whispers now reduced to anxious murmurs. Then, from the shadows, a figure began to take shape. First, just a flicker, but then it solidified, forming into a grotesque semblance of a human: long limbs, head tilting at an unnatural angle, sunken eyes glistening with malice. Emily's pulse quickened as she recognized it. It was not Rachel. This was something far more sinister. Welcome back, it hissed, voice like rusted metal scraping against stone. The tone was unmistakably taunting. I've awaited your return, dear Emily. Panic surged through Emily, pulsing like fire in her veins. What do you want? She shouted, her voice barely steady. She grasped the diary tighter, its pages warm against her trembling fingers. It felt like a lifeline, yet the shadows pressed against her mind, urging her to abandon it. Want? The creature's laughter bubbled like boiling water. Oh, I want much. I want freedom that your precious stepmother denied me. In that moment, shards of memories burst forth in Emily's mind. Tales whispered by the children of a malevolent spirit trapped in the very fibers of the house, a being that craved revenge, lost to the depths of darkness. You've helped me break her chains, it hissed, taking a step forward. Now you can join me, or you can be consumed. She felt a rising tremor within her, a desperate urge to fight, to stand tall against this monstrous foe. I'd rather die than join you. Then die you shall. Shadows flared around it, slithering like snakes, converging into a monstrous maw, ready to snatch her away. But Emily's fury ignited a spark within. I bind you! She shouted again, her voice growing stronger as emotions roared through her. The diary pulsed, alive with energy as she recited the binding spell anew. The entity halted, confusion spreading across its twisted features. You think you can contain me? Yes, Emily declared, determination surging through her. You are nothing without fear, and I refuse to let you rule my life. With every word she spoke, bright energy radiated from her fingertips, illuminating the darkened corners of the attic. The creature recoiled, shadows flickering like dying embers. She shouted the ending of the incantation, feeling the power binding not just the being in front of her, but the very ground she stood on. Release bind, the air crackled, and a blinding light erupted, enveloping the room. The creature let out a horrible shriek, twisting, morphing in agony. The shadows began to scream too, cries of rage and despair echoing around her. But as the whirlwind of light pulled tighter, tendrils of darkness lashed out, gripped her ankles, coiling like vengeful snakes. You think you can trap me? It howled, voice now mixed with a multitude of whispers. I am the house. I am eternal. Emily felt something breaking within her, an agony that riveted her with fear. What if she truly was not strong enough? What if all her efforts only fed this evil? In the heart of the chaos, a child's voice pierced through like a beacon. Emily! You have to believe! She turned mentally, desperately searching, and found each child's eyes alight with encouragement. You are not alone! They cried. Her heart surged as she fought against the shadows, igniting a resolve she didn't know she possessed. Would it work? Could the light truly win? The shadows twisted, torn between Emily's burgeoning power and a darkness far older, far angrier. The air thickened, crackled, and with one final surge of will, she pushed forward. But in that instant, a shudder rippled through the house. The walls groaned in response. The light dimmed, trembling. What had she unleashed? Was this truly the end, or merely the beginning? The question hung in the air as a chilling wind swept through the attic, carrying with it the whispers of those long lost. The shrieks morphed into anguished wails that reverberated through the attic. Emily gasped, stumbling back against the wall as the room twisted. The once comforting light flared and faltered, sending flickering shadows dancing wildly around her. Each breath was a struggle against the choking darkness, trying to reclaim what she fought so hard to bind. Emily, the creature's voice dripped with mockery. You think your light can defeat me? You've merely nudged me back into the shadows, and I will return. Stronger. Panic surged anew, and Emily tightened her grip on the diary, its pages warm against her clammy fingers. If she could just finish the spell, if she could gather her strength, she could send this horror back to where it belonged. But doubt gnawed at her. Was the energy of the children enough? The faces of the lost spirits swirled around her, their expressions a mixture of fear and hope. Believe! The children urged, their voices barely audible over the creature's screams. With a shudder, the shadows lunged like ravenous dogs, snapping at her heels, dragging her down even as her resolve splintered. Release bind, she cried again, each word a desperate plea. Each syllable a lifeline. A gust of icy wind erupted in the attic, interrupting her fierce mantra. The floorboards vibrated under her feet, echoing with the throbs of malevolence thrumming through the very bones of the house. Your words mean nothing. It taunted, echoing from every corner of the darkened space. I am the keeper of these walls. The blood of the unwitting feeds my strength. The air thickened with sulfur, a tangible dread wrapping around her throat, squeezing. Emily's heart raced, she felt it. The deep, primal terror clawed at her mind, whispering the unthinkable. Was this darkness really bound to the house, feeding off the pain of those trapped? If she failed, what would become of her and the children? No! I will not let you win! She shouted, the defiance burning bright. The faces of the children rallied her spirit, their tiny forms shimmering in her vision. They were just kids. They deserved to escape this hell. As she draws upon the remains of her energy, Emily called forth the spell once more, infusing it with the love she held for the children, turning her fear into fuel. The air around her crackled, the amalgamation of light and shadows clashing violently like a storm. Release, bind together. The energy exploded outward in a blinding flash, engulfing everything. The creature howled as ripples of power surged through the space, ripping at the shadows and flooding the room with a spectral luminescence. A rift of brilliance opened up above them, illuminating the attic. Every broken toy, every splintered beam, all the twisted remnants of despair shone starkly in the light. But then, something shifted. The house groaned in protest as if it too would rebel against her. The light began to fracture. Emily felt the strain, like a taut string about to snap. Your light cannot cleanse what is forever tainted. The creature shrieked, its form twisting into a swirling mass of darkness, spiraling to fight against her binding spell, hungry to reclaim its dominion. A realization hit her with the force of a freight train. The entity wasn't just bound to the house, it was tied to her, her own fears feeding its power, feeding the darkness within. Think, Emily! She urged herself, her heart hammering. The wrath of the entity bore down on her, and she was losing ground. She needed to confront the very source of her fear. Her voice steadied, a whisper rising against the chaos. I am not afraid. I will stand my ground. Suddenly, the cries faded, the shadows stilled, waiting. In that moment of stillness, a chilling echo filled the space. Then let us see if you can survive the truth, the creature purred. The walls around her shifted, morphing and undulating, revealing memories that lost the light of day. Horrific visions seeped forth, anguish etched into unrecognizable faces, the pain of betrayal, and secrets buried alive in the dark. As horror intertwined with her reality, Emily grasped the diary closer, forcing herself to gaze into the suffering that unfolded. What secrets could she unearth? What trauma had shaped the malevolence rooted deep within? Before she could muster a response, a powerful tremor rocked the attic, the echoes of past torments reverberating through her very bones. The flickering light dimmed, just as the whispers grew louder, morphing into a single voice filled with rage and vindication. In the heart of the madness, Emily understood the battle was far from over. What she faced was not just a spirit but her own nightmares projected. The shadows loomed closer, swallowing everything in their wake. What truths would emerge from the darkness? And what if it was her own past that held the key to this terror? The shadows drew closer, and the whispered secrets dripped like venom, leaving her on the precipice of despair. She had to make a choice, but what lay on the other side? Would confronting her past lead to salvation or doom? The attic shuddered, shifting between reality and the nightmare that burrowed deeper into Emily's consciousness. Her heart thudded against her ribs, matching the frantic tempo of her thoughts. She was surrounded by darkness, the very essence of it creeping into her bones. Emily. The voice coiled around her like a serpent, tight and suffocating. The truth is far more horrific than you can imagine. The room changed again, the walls folding back to reveal scenes that wrung tears from her soul. Faces flickered within the darkness, each more grotesque than the last, children with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes, their mouths twisted in silent screams. She recognized them, the youthful laughter stolen by despair. Her heart clenched at the realization, she was tethered to every one of them. Each loss whispered her name. No! She gasped, stepping back in defiance. This isn't real. But as the shadows surged forward, she felt the weight of their collective pain. Buried memories emerged, her childhood filled with darkness, The moments she had buried alive the fear of being unloved, the moments of isolation after her father's failure, and the coldness of her stepmother's rejection. Terrifying truths strangled her spirit. The entity knew her, clawing at these vulnerabilities, feeding off the torment. "Reveal yourself!" Emily screamed, the words bursting forth with renewed urgency. "Show me what binds you to this house." The shadows receded, revealing a ghostly shimmer swirling at her feet. The air thickened with palpable tension as the creature took form, a grotesque silhouette of her deepest fears. All the moments she wished to forget, twisted into monstrosities. It loomed closer, dark wisps forming arms that reached out to her. "You think you can control me? You are weak. You are the summation of all your sorrow. Face it, embrace it." Emily felt the cold fingers of the creature brush against her skin, sending icy tendrils creeping up her spine. She fought to shake free, her pulse racing in terror. The visions spun around her, overriding her senses. Each breath filled with the stench of decay, and in the far reaches of her mind, she could hear whispering secrets that were never meant to surface. "Stop!" she shouted, desperation threading through her voice. "I will confront you. You don't own me." The shadows screamed, a dark agony echoed back within her, weaving around her like a net. Anger flared in her chest, and with it, determination took root. "You're nothing but a shadow. I am more than my past." For a fleeting moment, the darkness hesitated. Emily took her chance. She raised the diary high, letting the light from its pages spill into the pit of despair, illuminating the twisted remnants of her childhood pain. "I will not be defined by you. I will break this curse." She spoke the words with conviction, feeling the power surge through her, pushing against the suffocating weight. Light flooded the attic, illuminating the corners where shadows lingered, pushing them back. The creature shrieked, writhing in fury as the warmth enveloped her, and the lost souls of the children surged around, rallying against the darkness. "Together we..." Emily's voice faltered. The shadows pulsed, demanding to reclaim the light. She sensed their fury mount. In that moment, a dull ache spread through her as fears and insecurities threatened to spill back in. "I can't do this alone." But just then, from the depths of dread emerged whispers of the children, their voices melding together. "You are not alone." The shadows flickered, and with a bright surge, hope rose within her. But even as the light strengthened, a cold dread seeped back in, a malevolent whisper in her ear. "What if they turn on you? What if you fail?" Emily's breath hitched. Shadows edged closer again, menacing and relentless. What had she truly unleashed? She grappled with the underlying dread, realizing the horror wasn't just about the entity or the children. It was also her deep-seated fear of abandonment, of not being enough. In that realization, a new truth dawned. Emily's journey was far from complete. As the shadows surged forward, a deep, guttural laugh erupted, sending a shiver down her spine. "Let us see if your so-called light can withstand the darkness that lives within you." With the grip of terror tightening around her throat, Emily fought to maintain her newfound power. But doubt crept in, threatening her resolve. Could she truly confront the darkness deep inside? And what if her own courage turned to ashes in the throes of despair? She clutched the diary tighter, her resolve wavering as the shadows closed in once more. What horrors awaited her within, and would she have the strength to face it? As the darkness beckoned, a chilling question hung in the air. Would she emerge unscathed, or would the nightmare consume her whole? The darkness roared around Emily, a tempest of despair and rage that threatened to suffocate her. She felt suffocated, suspended in an overwhelming void where shadows squeezed tight around her. Panic clawed at her throat, each breath becoming more desperate, more labored. Emily, the voice, thick with malice, slithered through the black. "You think you are powerful? But look at what you have to face." The light from her diary flickered, a candle struggling to survive against the storm. The shadows pulsated, swirling faster and darker, ready to devour her resolve whole. Just as she thought it would extinguish, the whispers from the lost children surged like a tide, pushing against the oppressive shadows. "Fight! We are with you!" The memory of their laughter filled the room, a sweet sound ringing faintly through the chaos. She could still picture their smiles, now twisted and ragged in the dark. "You won't take their hope!" she screamed, her voice a rallying cry against the encroaching gloom. With renewed strength, she stepped forward. The diary burned bright, casting long shadows as she held it aloft. Despite herself, she remembered each child, their silent faces, the joy snatched away by relentless dark. She couldn't let their suffering be in vain. "Show me what you truly are," she demanded. Instead of responding, the shadows coiled closer, their bitterness rolling off them like a poison. A terrible laughter surrounded her, surrounding her with despair that tasted like ash in her mouth. Suddenly, lean fingers shot out from the dark, wrapping around her wrists like chains. Skeletal faces peeked through the shadows, each one a ghostly echo of pain and trauma. "We were all abandoned, Emily," they whispered, their words serrated, slicing through the remnants of her courage. "You can't save us. You never could." Emily's pulse hammered in her ears, each heart thud like a drum of dread tightening around her chest. "Shut up!" she shouted, yanking against the skeletal grip. But their dark fingertips dug in deeper, feeding off her terror. Each moment pulled her closer to the edge of despair, but she couldn't relent. She remembered looking through the attic window as a child, watching the sun dip below the horizon and weave patterns of light through the trees. "You don't own me!" she shouted, forcing every ounce of defiance in her voice. "You are just a memory. You are not real!" The shadows froze, hesitating. For an agonizing beat, she felt the grip of despair loosen. Yet, their laughter returned, echoing like a sinister wind that tore through the cracks in her confidence. "What if?" The thought sent chills down her spine, a relentless whisper igniting doubt. "What if you have always been alone?" "No!" she screamed, thrusting the diary forward. The radiant glow intensified, momentarily dispelling the vile breath of the shadows. The once sinister figures turned, their hollow eyes blazing with rage. The walls began to tremble as the grin of the entity morphed into one of hungry anticipation. "Do you think light can dispel everything?" it hissed, swirling closer in a whirlwind of despair and malice. "Can it oust the nightmares trapped within you?" The walls warped again, warped reflections of her darkest moments crawling out her father's face, twisted in regret, her stepmother's disdain, shaping the tableau of her torment. She gasped, shaking her head fiercely. "No! I won't fall!" But the shadows lunged, rushing toward her like a flood, drowning out her light. Emily stumbled back, her heart racing, mind racing faster. Was it going to end here? With a voice trembling yet fierce, she blurted, "If this is the end, then I will take you down with me." The shadows paused again, their fury dimmed momentarily by her fierce resolve. But uncertainty loomed large. Did these shadows mean to destroy her, or were they begging for escape? As the shadows engulfed her completely, the words echoed in her mind. "You can't escape what lives within." A cold fear settled deep in her stomach. What if the real terror wasn't the shadows stalking her but the confounding darkness hidden in her own heart? Would she confront the truth, or would accepting it swallow her whole? The shadows tightened their grip, a vice of cold and bitterness squeezing at her very essence. Emily gasped, feeling their malicious energies seep into her mind, filling her thoughts with whispers of doubt and despair. Each exhale was a fight, a battle against the overwhelming weight. But still, she clung to the diary as if it were a lifeline. "Remember the laughter," a voice pleaded within her, rising above the cacophony. It was the voice of one of the children, sweet and innocent, a fleeting reminder of what she fought for. But their laughter also felt like a cruel joke now, echoing through her mind as the shadows pulled her deeper. "Fight or fade," the entity hissed, its voice a chilling serenade that slithered around her. "Let us see how long you can last, little girl." Suddenly, a poignant image flickered through her mind, a moment from her childhood. The first day she entered the old house, laughing with her mother, her hand clutching the new doll. But that memory cracked and shattered, revealing the hidden pain beneath. The faces of the lost children contorted, twisted into mockery. "You thought you were safe?" they taunted. White-hot fear ignited in her chest. "Get out! You don't belong here. Her voice barely steadied, but determination surged. She willed the radiance of the diary to grow, spilling warmth into the icy tendrils of darkness. Yet, the shadows only laughed, an ugly cacophony reverberating in her ears. You can't flicker away the truth. The darkness feeds on your fears. With each pulse of her heartbeat, fleeting memories of her father's anger, her stepmother's disdain, and her own insecurities seeped out, waxy and toxic. It was like standing on the edge of a vast abyss, where her failures swirled like a maelstrom, threatening to pull her in. Lies, she whispered, clenching her jaw. I want to drown in lies. Staring into the mass of swirling black, she took a step forward. The diary burned bright, illuminating her turmoil, and she screamed, You can't have my memories. You're not real. The shadows hesitated. For one breathless moment, the darkness stuttered, flickering, faltering against her fierce stand. As if sensing her resolve, they shifted restlessly, winding tighter around her. The image of her father leered at her once more, a twisted sentinel of her insecurities. You're just like me, he spat, venom seeping from his voice. You'll never escape your blood. No! She cried out, diving into that pain with determination. I am more than this! Each word was forged with her defiance, and the walls trembled again, shadows trembling at her newfound strength. But deep inside, uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. What if they're right? What if I really am trapped forever in this darkness? Just then, the walls bent and shifted, revealing a hidden doorway, a dim light glowing from within. Curiosity bubbled, pushing against her fear. If that's what it takes, she whispered, heading toward the light. Clenching her teeth, Emily moved forward, each step gaining strength as the shadows writhed. I will find the way out. I will not become just a memory not like them. As she neared the threshold, the shadows recoiled, hissing and shrieking, their voices a savage wind. This isn't the end of your story, Emily. Your reckoning is only beginning. She reached out, touching the light. It pulsed, warm and inviting, battling the chill creeping through her. Just as she began to cross the threshold, a heavy darkness enveloped her again, pulling her swiftly back. With a jolt, Emily found herself face to face with a mirror, her own reflection warped and twisted. What have you become? She gasped, staring into the depths of her own eyes, a darkness swirling within. A chilling laugh echoed, shadowy tendrils darting toward her from inside the mirror. You wanted to know what lives within? Welcome to your nightmare. Panic surged, and she braced for the inevitable. Would she fight or sink into this woven chaos? Would she find clarity or be lost forever? As the cold grasp lunged at her, she felt the pulse of possibility coursing through her. This is not how it ends. The threshold of the light trembled with anticipation, swirling like the tempest outside. What awaited her on the other side? Would the darkness succumb to her resolve, or would it trap her in an eternal night? Emily stood at the precipice of her own darkness, a churning maelstrom of emotion crashing within her. The shadows clawed at her, whispering sweet nothings of despair, trying to coax her into submission. But she didn't have the luxury of fear anymore. This was it. The moment she had been fighting for, wrestling with shadows more than just those creeping through the attic. What if? The thought hung in the air, heavy with doubt and dread. But with a fierce breath, she shook it off. No! She shouted, the word echoing like thunder. You don't own me. You're just echoes of my past. She surged forward, feeling the diary pulse in her grip, a lifeline amid the flood of shadows. The entity before her writhed like a living nightmare, a canvas painted with her hidden fears. But she had the light inside her fueled by the laughter of the lost children, woven into every page of the diary. Children! She called out, her voice resonating with conviction. You are with me in this. Together, we push back against the dark. Together, we are strong. The darkness roiled. The grotesque figure recoiled at her words, as if they were tangible blows, her defiance startling it. She pressed forward, thrusting the diary at it, light spilling from its pages in an explosion of brilliance. You're diminished by fear. You hide because you think it makes you powerful. The entity screeched, its form twisting and contorting, shadows pulling tighter around Emily and the ghostly children. But Emily felt a rush of warmth swell in her chest. Fueled by the memories of childhood joy lost, she transcended her darkest fears. "I want to be just a shadow," she shouted, her voice rocketing through the stillness like an arrow. As the bright energy erupted around her, the shadows shrank back, revealing the terrified faces of the lost children. Their eyes glistened with hope, their whispers mingling with Emily's cries. "Fight! Fight for us!" they chorused, rallying around her. Her heart soared, she wasn't alone. "Release, bind together." The words burst forth with powerful clarity, each syllable echoing like a heartbeat in the dimness. The light surged, radiant and blinding, swallowing the shadows, igniting the attic with an energy that vibrated through every damp corner. The entity howled as the sheer force of light wrapped around it, each push against the dark creating rifts in its sinister form. With one final surge, Emily shouted out a name, not just a binding spell but a declaration: "I bind you to the truth. You will not take anyone from me again." A scream like shattered glass erupted from it, the culmination of 1,000 tormented cries ringing in her ears as the room shook. Light engulfed the shadows, driving them back to the abyss from whence they had come, flickering and writhing as if they were a dying smoke. Then silence. Emily felt the air grow still. Slowly, the light began to fade, and in its stead, a serene glow spread warmth through the attic. She blinked, adjusting to the newfound calm. The childlike ghosts gathered around her, their faces softened, no longer marred by torment. "We are free," they whispered, their voices harmonizing, a chorus of gratitude. "Thank you, Emily." Her heart swelled. Joy surged within her, battling against the remnants of fear still left clinging to the ropes of her being. She glanced around, no more shadows chased her. The attic looked different, almost alive. "Where did Rachel go?" A small voice piped up, a timid boy with curly hair standing beside her. She turned, searching the corners. Rachel had vanished, consumed by the very darkness she had wielded against them, but that wasn't her concern now. The children, their freedom remained. They were no longer bound. Emily felt lightheaded, a wave of relief washing over her. With slow breaths, she turned to the doorway, the sound of rain pattering against the roof a distant memory the storm had passed. She knew she needed to return to her father, to confront the truth of what had happened, but the way ahead felt bright and full of promise. Without another word, Emily smiled at the children. "Let us go home." They followed her, drifting out of the cellar like fireflies, illuminating her path with their ethereal glow. She paused at the attic door, glancing back at the remnants of their past, both beautiful and grotesque. With a final breath, Emily stepped into the light, ready to face whatever the future held. She emerged from the house that had once swallowed her spirit whole, now a monument to resilience instead of despair. It would take time to heal, but she was ready. The shadows had tried to claim her, but she had fought, had won. Suddenly, she realized how strong she was, how powerful love and hope could truly be. A breeze danced around her as she held the diary close, now a testament to her journey. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling the warmth of the children's spirits surrounding her, each heartbeat echoing with belief. And with that, she stepped into the light of a new dawn, the warmth wrapping around her, as life began anew. Now it's your turn. If you loved this finale, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love. Don't hold back and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's go!